Once upon a time, there was a boy named Park Young-ho. He lived in the city with his mom and his sister, Chanmi. They had recently moved from a cozy village to the bustling city. With the move came a new adventure, starting fresh at brand new schools. Young-ho ended up in an all-boys school, while Chanmi attended an all-girls school. Meanwhile, in another part of town, a nerdy student named Jin-soo found himself in a tough spot. Some bullies, led by a guy named Kai-T, were demanding his lunch money. But Jin-soo, brave as can be, refused to hand it over. The bullies didn't take kindly to this and resorted to force, snatching the money and even hitting poor Jin-soo. As fate would have it, Young-ho strolled by just in time to witness the whole ordeal. But instead of stepping in to help, he simply watched from the sidelines and then walked away. Later, when class began, Young-ho found himself sitting next to none other than Jin-soo, the very same student who had been picked on by Kai-T and his gang earlier. During break time, the notorious Kai-T made another appearance, this time to confront Jin-soo about allegedly reporting him to the school counselor. But Jin-soo, innocent as a lamb, stayed quiet because he hadn't snitched on anyone. Right beside Jin-soo, Young-ho shot Kai-T a fierce glare, making it clear he wasn't afraid to stand up to him. Kai-T, feeling the heat of Young-ho's challenge, got visibly annoyed and warned Young-ho to back off if he valued his life. But instead of cowering in fear, Young-ho flashed a confident smile at Kai-T, unfazed by the threat. As soon as Kai-T and his crew skulked away, Jin-soo cautioned Young-ho to tread carefully around Kai-T. When Young-ho heard Kai-T's name, it triggered a surprising realization. Memories flooded back, reminding him that Kai-T was someone he knew from elementary school, a former friend turned schoolyard bully. After school, Young-ho stumbled upon a boxing training center by chance, and his interest was piqued. With no one around, he took the opportunity to test out some of the boxing gear. Before long, the owner of the gym showed up and gave Young-ho an earful for using the equipment without permission. Quick on his feet, Young-ho expressed his keen interest in joining the training center. The boxing coach handed him a form to fill out, offering to start his training the next day. But Young-ho, fueled by enthusiasm, insisted on starting right then and there. And so, with determination blazing in his eyes, Young-ho began his boxing journey with gusto. Later that evening, Young-ho grew worried when his sister, Chanmi, hadn't returned home yet. He called her, urging her to come back, but Chanmi was too wrapped up in her time at the karaoke club with her boyfriend. Frustrated by her disregard for his concerns, Young-ho made up his mind to track her down himself. As Young-ho made his way, he unexpectedly bumped into Kai-T and his crew. A friend of Kai-T's beckoned him over, prompting Kai-T to inquire about Young-ho's name. When Young-ho revealed himself as Park Young-ho, it dawned on Kai-T that they were childhood pals. Kai-T seized the chance to catch up, inviting Young-ho for a drink while they reminisced about old times. Amidst the laughter and shared memories, Kai-T opened up about his father's passing, revealing a vulnerable side. After exchanging stories and reflecting on their shared past, Young-ho mentioned he had to go. Moments later, he finally tracked down Chanmi, who was enjoying herself with her boyfriend. Young-ho swiftly called her and whisked her home, but Chanmi wasn't pleased. She lashed out, accusing Young-ho of being too overbearing and strict. The following day, Young-ho invited Jin-soo over to his place for some math tutoring. However, Young-ho found himself struggling to grasp Jin-soo's explanations, and his growling stomach signaled it was time for a break. So, Young-ho suggested they grab some noodles together. As they slurped down noodles, Jin-soo questioned why Young-ho was so determined to excel in math. Young-ho confided that it was his late father's wish for him to excel academically, driving him to study hard. Their noodle outing marked the beginning of a deep friendship between Young-ho and Jin-soo. Meanwhile, Kai-T and his pals were having a blast at a karaoke joint when an unexpected interruption occurred. A group of senior students, led by a tough-looking guy named Chun-gil, crashed their party. Faced with the presence of Chun-gil and his crew, Kai-T and his friends had no choice but to swallow their pride and keep quiet, knowing better than to challenge their older peers. At the boxing gym, Young-ho couldn't help but feel a pang of envy as he watched another student training solo under the coach's watchful eye. But instead of letting it get to him, he resolved to work even harder. Mimicking the moves he observed the coach teaching the other student, Young-ho practiced diligently on his own. The next day, when Kai-T and his crew targeted Jin-soo once again, Young-ho couldn't stand idly by. He stepped in to defend Jin-soo, sparking a fierce brawl right in the classroom. With swift and skillful moves, Young-ho took down the bullies one by one, emerging victorious. Kai-T, taken aback by Young-ho's fighting prowess, issued a warning, cautioning him not to meddle in his affairs if he wanted to avoid trouble. As Kai-T left, another student named Sang-woon praised Young-ho for his bravery in standing up to Kai-T's gang. Back at the scene, Kai-T was fuming with anger, feeling utterly humiliated by Young Ho's unexpected retaliation against his gang. One of them proposed seeking revenge on Young Ho to salvage their gang's reputation. However, Kai-T remained silent, seemingly hesitant to escalate the situation recklessly. On their way home from school, Sang-woon, who had been eagerly waiting for Young Ho, introduced his friend Hak-soo to him. Hak-soo was thoroughly impressed by Young Ho's display of martial arts prowess in defending Jin-soo and thwarting Kai-T's gang. Later, Young Ho, Sang-woon, and Hak-soo gathered at a food stall to share a meal together. Over lunch, Sang-woon and Hak-soo revealed their deep-seated resentment towards Kai-T for his bullying ways, particularly targeting the weaker students at school. Following their meal, Young Ho took Sang-woon and Hak-soo to the boxing gym, where he confided in them about his fear of Kai-T, who had always been a menacing figure. However, Sang-woon and Hak-soo offered words of encouragement, assuring Young Ho that he was not weak and was more than capable of standing up to Kai-T. The next day, tensions reached a boiling point when Chun-gil, furious over the measly sum of money Kai-T had given him, took it out on Kai-T's gang members, beating them up. Despite Kai-T's warning about the reported activities to the school board, Chun-gil remained indifferent, showing no concern whatsoever. On his way home from school, Young Ho stopped by his mother's shop, only to witness her being harassed by some unsavory guests. Fueled by anger, Young Ho contemplated taking matters into his own hands but ultimately restrained himself, remembering his promise to his mother to avoid getting into fights. Determined to release his pent-up frustration, Young Ho headed to the boxing center, where he unleashed his emotions through rigorous practice in the ring. After his training session, Young Ho stumbled upon a troubling scene outside a motel. Kai-T's girlfriend, Hai-jin, was being pressured by a senior to hang out with him. Despite Hai-jin's refusal, the senior persisted in his advances. Young Ho, conflicted, chose to turn a blind eye and walked away. Later on, Hai-jin managed to break free from her persistent senior and approached Young Ho, questioning why he didn't intervene. Young Ho remained silent and continued on his way home. As Young Ho journeyed home, he encountered a heated confrontation between a boy and his sister, Chan Mai. Without hesitation, Young Ho stepped in and threw a punch at the boy, only to realize that he had inadvertently struck Chan Mai's boyfriend. Chan Mai scolded him for his actions, expressing her displeasure at Young Ho's impulsive behavior. As Kai-T and his gang resumed their bullying ways, they resorted to even more despicable tactics. This time, they coerced their victim into stealing money from his own mother, handing over the cash to them as part of their cruel scheme. Meanwhile, Sang-woon and Hak-soo tempted Young Ho to ditch class and join them for a smoke in the school's backyard. While puffing away, Young Ho brought up a student from Yongjin High School known as Young-il, infamous for his violent behavior. To everyone's surprise, Young Ho revealed that Young-il happened to be his sister's boyfriend, and he had recently clashed with him over an incident where Young-il had harmed his sister. Impressed by Young Ho's boldness and courage, Hak-soo and Sang-woon marveled at his willingness to stand up against injustice, even in the face of formidable opponents like Young-il. After school, Hai-jin approached Young Ho, suggesting they walk home together and introducing him to her friend. However, Young Ho wasn't keen on the idea and politely declined. Shortly afterward, they crossed paths with Kai-T and his gang unexpectedly. Kai-T, upon seeing Hai-jin with Young Ho, seized the opportunity to assert his dominance. He called out to Hai-jin and brazenly leaned in for a kiss, making it clear to Young Ho and his friends that she was his girlfriend. Despite Kai-T's deliberate attempt to provoke him, Young Ho remained unfazed. Without batting an eye, he simply walked away from the situation, showing that he wasn't bothered by Kai-T's display of possessiveness. The next day at school, tensions ran high as Kai-T handed over the stolen cash to Chun-gil, who ominously warned him about a senior named Sang-kai. On his way home, Young Ho found himself ambushed by students from Yongjin High School, seeking payback for his run-in with Young-il. Outnumbered and facing a daunting 1 versus 3 brawl, Young Ho fought valiantly but was clearly struggling. Just when it seemed like Young Ho might be overwhelmed, Sang-woon and Hak-soo swooped in to lend a hand. Together, they turned the tables on their adversaries, emerging triumphant from the showdown. In the aftermath of the confrontation, Young Ho doubled down on his boxing training, determined to become even stronger to face future bullies head-on. Every day, he pushed himself to the limit, fueled by the desire to stand tall against injustice. One day, Young Ho and his 3 pals hit up a convenience store for some snacks and drinks. They parked themselves outside to enjoy their goodies when, out of the blue, Kai-T and his cronies showed up. Kai-T, clearly irked by Young Ho's recent heroics against bullies, vented his frustration. Sang-woon, ever the defender of justice, stood up to Kai-T, arguing that Young Ho did nothing wrong. In response, Kai-T lashed out and hurled a drink at Sang-woon's face. To prevent things from escalating further, Young-ho urged his friends to leave. As they walked away, they discussed what they could do to put a stop to Kai-T and his gang's reign of terror. Hak-soo suggested taking a more aggressive approach, advocating for an attack on Kai-T. But Young-ho remained silent, deep in thought. Eventually, he bid farewell to his friends, leaving them to ponder their next move. As Young-ho made his way home, fate intervened once more, bringing Hae-jin back into his path. She invited him to share a meal, and Young-ho couldn't resist. After dinner, Young-ho offered to drive Hae-jin home, a gesture that led to an unexpected moment of intimacy when she kissed him and confessed her feelings. Stunned by Hae-jin's bold move, Young-ho found himself grappling with newfound emotions. Later, he arrived at his mother's shop, only to witness her enduring yet another instance of harassment from a persistent troublemaker. This time, Young-ho's patience reached its limit. Fueled by righteous anger, he took matters into his own hands, delivering a satisfying dose of justice to the harasser. The next day, Sang-woon and Hak-soo, fueled by anger and recklessness, decided to confront Kai-T and his gang head-on, challenging them to a fight. However, just before the brawl could erupt, Kai-T received a devastating call from Hae-jin, ending their relationship. Distraught over the breakup, Kai-T unleashed his frustration on Sang-woon and Hak-soo, leading his gang in a vicious attack that left the two friends badly injured. When Young-ho inquired about their condition, Hak-soo questioned why Young-ho remained silent and didn't stand up to Kai-T. Was he afraid? Meanwhile, Jin-soo found himself targeted once again by Kai-T and his gang, resulting in a brutal beating that landed him in the hospital. Visiting Jin-soo, Young-ho, Sang-woon, and Hak-soo were shocked by the extent of his injuries. Despite the pain, Jin-soo managed to muster a smile, insisting that he was okay. Young-ho's anger boiled over as he witnessed the injustice inflicted by Kai-T and his gang. Sang-woon proposed avenging their friends, and Hak-soo was also determined to take down Kai-T once and for all. Young-ho and his crew finally took action against Kai-T and his gang. They confronted them at their usual hangout spot, throwing down the gauntlet and challenging them to a brawl. The battle was intense, each side fighting fiercely for dominance. But Young-ho and his friends refused to back down, fighting with all their might until they emerged victorious, besting Kai-T and his gang once and for all. Following their triumph, Kai-T's gang found themselves on the receiving end of retaliation from Sang-Kai's crew. However, Young-ho and his friends stood firm, unafraid and ready to face any threats to their newfound peace. Meanwhile, Chun-gil, furious over Kai-T's defeat, ordered his lackeys to hunt down Young-ho. Yet, Young-ho's classmates remained loyal, refusing to give away his whereabouts. Amidst the chaos, Young-ho found comfort in the company of Sang-woon and Hak-soo, sharing a moment of respite. With Kai-T's gang defeated, Young-ho's reputation underwent a transformation. Once feared by bullies, he now commanded respect among his peers as a symbol of strength and courage. Jin-soo rushed to Young-ho, warning him about Chun-gil's henchmen searching for him. Without hesitation, Young-ho and his friends dashed off to confront Chun-gil and settle the score once and for all. After the showdown, their homeroom teacher summoned Young-ho and his friends to discuss their actions. They were sternly warned about the consequences of their behavior, with the looming threat of expulsion hanging over their heads should they repeat their mistakes. The downfall of Kai-T and his gang didn't eradicate bullying from their school. Instead, Chun-gil, rumored to have been arrested for causing a disturbance in public, passed the torch to his friend Seong-T. Later that day, Seong-T dealt out punishment to Kai-T's former lackeys for their defeat against Young-ho and his crew. The power dynamics within the school were shifting once again, signaling that the battle against bullying was far from over. Seong-T expressed his frustration, emphasizing how their defeat had tarnished their gang's reputation. His anger escalated upon discovering Kai-T's absence from school, feeling he deserved harsher punishment than his underlings. Not long after, Seong-T and his crew confronted Young-ho in his classroom, demanding a meeting on the rooftop during break time. Threatening violence if Young-ho refused, they made their intentions clear. Young-ho and his friends complied, meeting Seong-T on the rooftop as requested. However, instead of instigating a fight, Seong-T surprised them by offering Young-ho a spot in his gang. Refusing the offer outright, Young-ho made it clear he had no desire to join any gang. Annoyed but persistent, Seong-T urged Young-ho to reconsider his decision, revealing the depth of his determination. In the school cafeteria, Young-ho and his friends hashed out their options for dealing with Seong-T and his gang. Joining Seong-T's crew would mean becoming subservient to him, a prospect they were not keen on. After classes, Young-ho sought solace in the boxing gym, channeling his stress and frustration into his training regimen. Once he finished, he made his way home. Along the route, he encountered a group of schoolgirls indulging in a smoke break. Despite one of them showing interest in him, Young-ho brushed off the attention and continued on his way without looking back. At a billiard club, tension flared as Chang-ho found himself in a heated dispute with some high school students also enjoying a game. The situation quickly escalated, with the students attempting to outnumber Chang-ho, prompting him to defend himself with force. Moments later, Seong-tae and his gang entered the scene, discovering that the students involved in the altercation were under Seong-tae's command. Enraged by the sight of his battered comrades, Seong-tae wasted no time in launching an attack on Chang-ho, seeking retribution for the harm inflicted on his boys. A new student named Deechin stirred things up at school when he accidentally bumped into Hak-soo without apologizing, leaving Hak-soo fuming. Tempted to retaliate, Hak-soo was stopped by Young-ho just in time. In another incident, a girl named Min-young pulled a fast one on a man, scamming him out of his money. Angered by the deception, the man pursued her, intent on revenge. Luckily, Young-ho happened upon the scene and intervened, rescuing Min-young from harm. Grateful for his help, Min-young expressed her thanks and decided she wanted to get to know Young-ho better. The next day, Min-young boldly approached Young-ho and straightforwardly asked him to be her boyfriend. Caught off guard by her directness, Young-ho hesitantly agreed, and they spent the day together. However, their budding romance didn't go unnoticed, as Young-ho's sister, Chanmi, teased him about his newfound closeness to a girl, a sight she hadn't seen before. The following day, Seong-tae's gang approached Young-ho once more, demanding money. Just then, Deechin stepped in, urging them to cease their bullying. Predictably, the gang ignored his plea and launched an attack on Deechin. To their surprise, Deechin, typically quiet and unassuming, revealed formidable fighting skills, swiftly overpowering Seong-tae's lackeys. Seong-tae, incensed by his gang's defeat and humiliated by Deechin's unexpected prowess, berated his comrades and vowed vengeance against Deechin for daring to challenge them. Like always, Young-ho and his friends gathered at their regular hangout spot, enjoying each other's company over a meal. During their conversation, Sang-woon proposed the idea of forming an anti-bullying club to aid students facing harassment, a suggestion met with immediate approval from Young-ho. Meanwhile, Seong-tae approached Young-ho seeking information about the individual who had confronted his gang. Just then, the enigmatic figure, Deechin, made an unexpected appearance, surprising Seong-tae. It was revealed that Deechin and Seong-tae had once been close friends and part of the same gang. However, their relationship soured after a violent altercation with students from another school, during which Deechin suffered a severe leg injury. Abandoned by Seong-tae and the others when the police arrived, Deechin was arrested and subsequently suspended from school. Since then, he had distanced himself from Seong-tae. After school, Young-ho and Jin-soo hit the boxing gym together, honing their skills. Later on, Deechin dropped by to greet them, marking a visible display of their budding friendship. Seong-tae's gang couldn't help but notice the growing bond between Young-ho and Deechin, causing them considerable concern. They feared that if Young-ho and Deechin joined forces, their combined strength would be unstoppable. Word of Young-ho and Deechin's friendship eventually reached Seong-tae, prompting him to devise a plan to confront Deechin head-on. Meanwhile, Young-ho and his friends were enjoying some downtime at a karaoke bar when Min-young and Deechin joined them briefly. However, Deechin left early, heading home. Shortly after, Sang-woon and his friends spotted Seong-tae and his gang trailing Deechin. Worried about Deechin's safety, they decided to shadow Seong-tae's crew discreetly, fearing trouble was brewing. Unfortunately, Sang-woon's worst fears materialized as Seong-tae launched a vicious attack on Deechin. Despite Deechin's swift retaliation, he found himself overwhelmed when Seong-tae's cronies joined the fray, outnumbering him. As the gang closed in on Deechin, Sang-woon and his friends arrived just in time to lend support. However, facing overwhelming odds, Deechin and his allies were unable to hold their ground and suffered defeat. Thankfully, Jin-soo managed to escape and quickly sought help from Young-ho. Upon learning of Sang-woon's predicament, Young-ho raced to his friend's aid. With swift and decisive action, Young-ho confronted Seong-tae, unleashing a flurry of kicks that brought Seong-tae down. In the aftermath of their victory, Young-ho and his friends earned a fearsome reputation among other school gangs, establishing themselves as the dominant force within their school's social hierarchy. Now, Young-ho and his friends reigned supreme atop the school building's rooftop, a territory once claimed by Seong-tae and his gang. In the final scene of the movie, Seong-tae faces the wrath of a mysterious man, who chastises him for his humiliating defeat. It's revealed that Seong-tae is merely a pawn in a larger game, as there exists a shadowy figure even more powerful and influential than him, lurking in the background. And that's where this video ends. Watch the next one and take care.